Continuing on with the 2018-19 expectations videos for every team, in today's video we have the New Jersey Devils, definitely an up-and-coming team, but are they going to be able to replicate the season that they had last year? With that being said, let's get right into the video. So obviously this past season, the New Jersey Devils really exceeded everybody's expectations and got back into the playoffs kind of sooner than people would have thought. I really didn't think they were going to make the postseason. I didn't think Taylor Hall was capable of having the year that he had, but he showed that he is a MVP caliber player, winning the Hart Trophy, well deserved. In my opinion, he really helped out a lot of the young guys on this team develop faster than they would have if Taylor Hall was not a member of this team. Obviously, Nico Hischier and Taylor Hall developed some really good chemistry throughout the course of the season, and I think that's something we could see even upgraded next year, and I think Nico could have a really breakout season, and I think this year that Taylor Hall had is sustainable. I don't know if he's going to win another Hart Trophy just because I think the players around him are going to keep getting better, but if he does put up around 100 points and the New Jersey Devils are a fantastic team and a playoff team again next year, I think we could hear Taylor Hall's name thrown around in Hart Trophy conversation once again. Obviously 44, 29, and 9 for 97 points, 5th in the Metropolitan Division. Leading point scorer was Taylor Hall with 93 points, and the leading goal scorer was Taylor Hall with 39 goals. Obviously, this team goes however far Taylor Hall brings them, and in the first round of the playoffs, they were outmatched by the Tampa Bay Lightning. I was excited to watch them when they played that game in New Jersey. It seems like the fans were just so into it, and it was an amazing thing to see Taylor Hall finally in his first postseason. Obviously, in Edmonton, he didn't get any playoff games. His first year in New Jersey didn't go all that well, but he's really making New Jersey look like absolute geniuses for making this trade, and this could be one of the most one-sided trades of the past decade, that Adam Larsson for Taylor Hall swap. But right now it's looking like an amazing trade for the New Jersey Devils, and I think this team is only going to get better. It was a relatively quiet offseason for the New Jersey Devils, but they did lose out on some key players, and they were only really able to bring in Eric Grabo, who is most likely going to be a 7th or a depth defenseman. Brian Gibbons left the team. I believe he signed with the Anaheim Ducks. John Moore signed with the Boston Bruins, and Patrick Maroon signed with the St. Louis Blues. And Brian Gibbons is a guy who I think they're really going to miss out on having in their bottom 6. Patrick Maroon, I think he had a pretty decent year, but I don't think they're going to miss out on him all that much, especially with the younger players on their team getting better. And I think that is what is the saving grace for New Jersey and why they weren't really worried about losing these players, because the young players on this team are only going to get better and they're ready to take on bigger roles, so losing some veterans in the offseason due to free agency isn't really going to hurt this team. I wish they maybe would have tried to make a splash in free agency, get another big name player that really could have helped put this team over the edge and made them a contender. But for now, I still see them as a playoff team who could potentially make a deep run, but it was just a relatively quiet offseason that didn't really change much in my opinion for the New Jersey Devils heading into next year. Now taking a look at my lineup predictions for the New Jersey Devils heading into next season. Obviously on that top line you have Taylor Hall and Nico Hischier, and I have Jesper Bratt up there, but he's really interchangeable with Kyle Palmieri. But I think if Jesper Bratt is to solidify himself and prove that he wasn't just a one-year wonder and get some really good chemistry going with Hall and Hischier, that could be one of the most exciting lines to watch in the entire NHL. Sure, you could say they're a little bit soft as they don't really have too much size and they're more relied on their speed and skill, but that is what makes lines fun to watch, and speed is what makes them hard to play against. Obviously, I think Nico is only going to get better. Jesper Bratt should take another step forward, and I think Taylor Hall will sustain his MVP type like season. So I think that top line is fantastic for the New Jersey Devils. Then you have Marcus Johansson, and Pavel Zacha I think is a huge X factor for this team. You know, the word bust is getting thrown around when you talk about him because he was taken with such a high draft pick, but I've said this many times on the channel throughout the videos, some players take longer to develop than others, and he could be a case of that. So if he can really step up and be that second line center and be a guy who can give you 55 to 60 points, I think that would do wonders for this team and give you another player to worry about when you're going up against the New Jersey Devils, because if you're game planning to play this team, you're like, okay, we got to lock down Hall and Hischier, and that's really about it. But if Jesper Bratt really takes another step forward, and same with Pavel Zacha, that can be two other weapons on your team that can really just take some of the pressure off of your big guns. So all in all, a pretty good second line, especially if Palmieri still is a consistent 20 goal scorer. I like the top 6, and where it kind of drops off is the bottom 6, just because losing a guy like Brian Gibbons, I'm a big fan of him. He was always skating his hardest, finishing his checks, and he will be missed in this bottom 6. But obviously you still have guys like Blake Coleman, Travis Zajac, and Miles Wood. Wood had 19 goals last year, and I think if he is to get that up to around 20, that could be amazing for the team, and maybe he could even take Kyle Palmieri's spot on that second line, and that would just even increase the depth of the team even more. The top 3 lines I really do like, but I'm kind of iffy about this 4th line, but obviously you don't really have to play them all that much. You have Nosen, Brian Boyle, who I am a fan of, and then Anderson, who I'm not really familiar with. But Coleman, Zajac, and Wood is a really solid 3rd line in my opinion, especially if Travis Zajac still has a little bit left in the tank and can take on more kind of a shutdown role now, as opposed to being an offensive and just a two-way player throughout the course of his career. Obviously his career is kind of winding down, but if he can play a shutdown role in between Coleman and Wood, I think that would be huge. So all in all, I do like the forward group for the New Jersey Devils, and I think they can do a lot of damage next season. And then looking at the blue line, this is where things could kind of get concerning if you're looking at this team and trying to come up with what they could do to become a playoff contender. I think increasing the depth or getting another big name defenseman really could put them over the edge. I do wish they would have went after a guy like Mike Green or John Carlson. Obviously, Carlson decided to stay with the Washington Capitals, but if he was a free agent, I think a prime target for New Jersey would have been him. But obviously, they pretty much are just sticking and staying pat. And on that top pairing, I think they're going to have Andy Green and Sami Vatanen. And I'm not sure if Andy Green is really a reliable top 2 defender anymore. I think he'd be more suited to take on kind of a shutdown second pairing role. But Green and Vatanen on that top pairing should be able to hold their own. I'm a fan of Sami Vatanen. I like how he plays. Then you have Will Butcher and Damon Severson. I like that second pairing a lot. And if Butcher is able to take another step forward and take over that top 2 pairing away from Andy Green, that definitely could be a huge boost to this blue line. And then the bottom 2 is kind of where it gets iffy. Obviously, Eric Gryba could come in there. You have Mueller and Lovejoy. I think Lovejoy will probably be in here because he's a reliable guy. He has been throughout the majority of his career. But that bottom 2 could really be any 2 players on the depth chart for New Jersey. And then in net, you have a pretty solid 1-2 punch. If Schneider is healthy, playing at the top of his game, he's one of the best goalies in the league in my opinion. And obviously Kincaid had a really good stretch last season, and he showed he can potentially be a starter in this league. So if both are healthy and both are playing well, you have a really solid tandem in net. So I wouldn't say it's a good defense core, but it is decent, and it should be able to get the job done, especially since they have a pretty above average forward group. Now taking a look at my player stats predictions if everyone was to play in all 82 games. Like I say in all of these previews, obviously these players aren't going to play in all 82 games. I've been getting comments saying you're crazy for thinking that, and obviously this is kind of just their points per 82 games and what I think they'd be capable of if they stayed healthy and were playing at their best throughout the whole season. Taylor Hall, I have him leading the way with 41 goals and 53 assists for 94 points. Like I said, sustaining the year and kind of building off the year he had last year. And then I have Nico Hischier taking a pretty significant step forward with 24 goals and 51 assists for 75 points. That would be huge for Nico, really solidifying himself as another franchise player. So having 2 on your team obviously is fantastic. He was the #1 overall pick. That is what he was drafted to do, and I think he will do just that next season. Then I have Jesper Bratt. If he plays on that top line, he's going to get his fair share of points. So I have him with 19 goals and 39 assists for 58 points, in which would be a significant point increase from the 30-plus points he had last year, showing that he isn't just a one-year wonder, and he really was a steal with how late of a draft pick the New Jersey Devils selected him with. Obviously the top line there leading the way. And then have Pavel Zacha, 23 goals and 27 assists for 50 points, and which would be a really good sign for New Jersey Devils organization, for their fans, and especially for Pavel Zacha. I definitely think he still has a lot of potential and a lot more room to grow, and I think if he takes a step forward next year, it would be huge for this team. Then I have Will Butcher, because I think he'll be the quarterback of that power play, 11 goals and 35 assists for 46 points. Kyle Palmieri kind of just staying consistent like he's been throughout his career with 22 goals and 20 assists for 42 points. Then rounding out the top 6, I have Sami Vatanen with 7 goals and 34 assists for 41 points. So obviously leading the way is that top line, but after that, I really do hope Pavel Zacha can chip in and take some of the pressure off of the big guns. And then Butcher and Vatanen on the power play, I think will get their fair share of points. So that is just kind of what I see happening if everyone is to stay healthy, and kind of just their points per 82 games. Now, taking a look at my final expectations for the New Jersey Devils next season, I have them with a record of 48, 29, and 5, breaking the 100-point mark with 101 points for 4th in the Metropolitan Division, jumping up one spot from last season. Leading goal scorer Taylor Hall with 41. You've seen that in the player stats predictions. Hall leading point scorer with 94. All in all, I think they should take a step forward, even though they had a quiet offseason and lost a couple key players. The development of young guys like Butcher, Hischier, and Jesper Bratt, and hopefully Pavel Zacha should be enough to really keep this team moving in the right direction and to where they want to be, and that is to be a Stanley Cup contender. I think if they are able to acquire a big name defenseman at the trade deadline, because a lot of teams that aren't contending for playoff spots, I'm looking at Detroit with Mike Green, they could be in contention for one of those defensemen. That really could benefit them and give them a better chance of making a deep playoff run, because obviously the favorites in the Eastern Conference are probably Toronto and Tampa Bay. But if New Jersey is able to add another guy to take the pressure off of the guys like Will Butcher and Sami Vatanen, who aren't really number 1 defensemen and more number 2 or 3, would do wonders for this team. But I definitely think they're going to be really exciting to watch next season, and they still should be moving in the right direction. So that is going to wrap up this expectations video. Drop down in the comment section what expectations you want to see next for what team. As I don't really have a particular order, I'd kind of just pick a random team to do. So make sure you guys drop in the comment section who you want me to do next, and what do you think the New Jersey Devils are capable of next season. Are they a shot at being a dark horse and coming out of the Eastern Conference? Make sure you guys let me know. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content. And I'll see you guys all in the next video.